Hey everyone, welcome back to the Lost Eternal, the weekly Lost Ark, Lineage Eternal, and just action RPGs in general discussion. Welcome back guys to episode number 4. Let's not bother with intros and formalities, let's jump straight into the content. Now I've got some interesting stuff surrounding this episode that I think should be unique for a lot of people, especially, you know, on my channel anyway. We're going to talk about some of the negative things that I picked up recently that I did want to share with you guys revolving around Lost Ark, but also some other stuff. We're going to talk about the Holy Trinity and how it's going to affect Lineage Eternal and Lost Ark, and we're also going to be talking about just some other stuff in general and answering questions from last week. Okay, let's jump into it. So, first of all, I wanted to bring your attention towards the focus group test that came up fairly recently, or 2015, for Lost Ark, and it was essentially a very small video showcasing a group of players coming in and testing out the game. Now, throughout this actual test, they did reveal a little bit more, and it looked really official, and to be honest, I thought it was the start of a full swing marketing campaign from Smilegate to start introducing new news towards that particular game. Now, let me jump into it. So, straight off the bat, guys, I just want to throw it out there and say that it's kind of sad to see that Lost Ark and Lineage Eternal aren't really approaching the development in a transparent manner. You know, like years have gone by and we've had bits and pieces drip through, but it's really not an open development back and forth between the community and the guys that are making this game. It does feel a little bit cut off and isolated as a fan watching and wanting to know more and being a part of the actual game before it gets released, and we do feel cut off a little bit, and I think we've seen a pretty good job of that with Diablo 3. They did an amazing job of having at least one thing to talk about on a weekly basis. No matter how minor it was still interesting. You know, when you're caught up in that hype around a game, you don't even care. Like, if they're talking about grass textures, like, you'd be like, oh my god, amazing, you know, licking your fingers, that was amazing afterwards, but like, it's around basically nothing. But anyway, long story short, yeah, it's interesting to see how they're not being very transparent with this actual development. Now, speaking of transparency, yeah, I did want to draw your attention towards the focus group test video, and I come to realize a little bit later on after seeing this trailer, I'm going to throw it out there and say this actual video was a brand placement. This was a paid for sponsorship, and I'm just presenting, you know, the evidence to you guys. Don't get me wrong, this isn't fact or anything like that, but, you know, as a brand developer myself, my actual job, I kind of see, yeah, I'm surprised I didn't pick up on it straight away. 90% of the footage that is in this is product placement for Razer. Now, I did want to talk about this because there's a couple of different ways it could have gone about this. You know, it could have just been, hey, you know, for the focus test group, they just so happened to have all Razer gear, and it just so happened to be well placed in like 90% of the footage, if not all of it, or that, yeah, it's a product placement. And if it is, kudos to Razer for being up to speed with a game like Lost Ark, where not a lot of the mainstream has caught on to this game yet, but the community has. The actual players have. We know about this game, but when's the last time you heard anything about it anywhere? The best site, I would say, to follow up on Lost Ark and Lineage Eternal, excluding like social networks and Reddit and that kind of stuff, would be 2p.com. It's a fantastic site. They really do cover it very well. Yeah, guys, straight up, this video is a product placement for Razer. And yeah, now I was actually debating whether or not to talk about this because I know a heap of you are going to perceive this as a negative thing. I actually don't. I don't think it's a negative thing. I mean, it is what it is. It's, yeah, like, it's a partnership. So I'm not too jaded about it, but I was actually quite surprised because it hit me really hard. And I'm sure that now that I'm talking about it with you guys, you're going to be like, wait a minute. Yeah, this is a fucking Razer commercial. It's cool that we get to see some more stuff, and I'm totally 100% fine with product placement, you know, like two businesses getting together to promote their, you know, their product or their services, Smilegate and their game, and in Razer's case, you know, gaming product and technology. it's cool that they want to do that, but I just wanted to mention it to you guys. Like, that's what this is, in my opinion. So yeah, I'm gonna leave it at that anyway. So let me continue on. Now, I also wanted to talk about the animations in the trailer. Now, there's been a kind of a running theme between questions, and I did address this last episode about, is the trailer orchestrated? And this topic got brought up because of the graphic downgrades, or what it appeared to be a graphic downgrade. Now, if you focus on some of the monsters inside the actual trailer, you are going to notice some similarities between the way that the animations work. And this represents a game in early development when they have, essentially when you have a big group of monsters and you look at their animation, they're doing exactly the same thing. It's completely exactly the same movement between a whole group of them. And it seems to me that it's like, okay, we've got, these monsters don't have their full AI in yet because they're doing the exact same thing. Now, I've actually seen this before in, lots of different games. Even Diablo 3 occasionally, you'll see like a duplication of the animation, but that was early on. I haven't seen that in a very long time, and if it did happen, it was very rare. In this particular case, it is happening quite a lot from what I can see in the gameplay, so they still had a lot of work to go on based on that trailer, and it does kind of support the fact that, they put a bit of extra work into making the trailer look more playable than what it is. So anyway, guys, that's the negative stuff that I did want to talk about regarding Lost Ark anyway. I've actually had a recent, epiphany as well regarding Lineage Eternal. Just looking at, tons of gameplay that has been released in the past that was really interesting. And, I talked about in a previous episode how I think it's going to be, very open world MMO-y. But the more I get into it and the more it soaks in for myself is that I feel like it's less and less MMO-ish as we go. If they're going to stay true to the actual style of these games, then yeah, it should be, very big and open world, but it's looking more linear than I expected in the past. I don't think that this means that there's, not open hubs, and I don't think that there's going to be a cap on players. This might be the case, but it's getting more and more Diablo MO like how I see it anyway, with the randomized dungeons, which is a thing in MMOs, but they still segregate them into like channels and that kind of stuff. When they do the dynamic dungeon thing, they often do cap them at the amount of players that can come in at the same time. So that's what I'm kind of hoping, rather than a linear experience. But I just wanted to bring that up because, yeah, I'm definitely like, as time passes and things soak in, I learn stuff all the time. Alrighty, so let's talk about the Holy Trinity. Is this going to be in Lost Ark? Is this going to be in Lineage Eternal? Now, I can't confirm that. One of these guys are trying to combat the Holy Trinity. So if you don't know what that is, it's essentially the formula that MMOs use to balance the classes. There's the healer, there's the tank, and there's the DPS. This has been around for so long. Nearly every single new multiplayer game that comes out, or MMO game that comes out, they always say the same thing. They're always like, we're gonna break the Holy Trinity. We're gonna try something new. It's not gonna be inside of this game. Every single time someone says that, it never works out. Or if it does work out, one's essentially way better than the other. So I wanted to discuss this. Now, I remember reading in an article somewhere, I can't remember where it was, but I remember reading that the Lost Ark devs kind of said the same thing. They're like, look, we're aware of the Holy Trinity and we want to try and break it. We don't feel like it's a necessary thing in an MMO. Now, when it comes to hack and slash games, I totally agree. But when it does come to big raids and that kind of stuff, if you have a healing class, why would you play it when you can just down stuff with DPS? Or, if the monsters are too hard, why would you play a squishy DPS character when you could just stack up on tanks and soak all of the damage? It's scissors, paper, rock, essentially. That's why it's such a core principle when it does come to MMOs, and why it is such a hard principle to break. When you throw in another thing into the mix, the scissors, paper, rock, it just complexifies everything a lot. So I wanted to talk about just some of the ideas that I think would be really cool to come into Lost Ark, Lineage Eternal, if they do choose to try and combat the Holy Trinity, these three, core pieces in the game. I really feel like they're so staple that they need to kind of stay there. It's either all in one or the Holy Trinity, to be honest. It's like either all DPS, all tanks, all healers, and the actual different tweaks from the actual, classes. So let's say they went for like an all DPS style game where it's just fast paced, it's all focused on outputting damage, and I really feel like Diablo 3 is that type of game. You know what I mean? Like there's no tank, healer, whatever. Except when you get towards, extremely high greater rifts, then you do tend to have a balance, but it's a little bit different. There are no healers in the game that really work. You have things that are mainly like CC. You have things that are like crowd control, pulling groups together, roaming ahead, and you do definitely have a DPS character, but it's not the Holy Trinity, I can tell you that. So I really feel like that if they are going to do this, then they need to have one character, and the significant differences between, a healer, a tank, and a DPS, they can definitely have them in there if they want to successfully break them up, but they can definitely have that kind of stuff in there with heals and that, but it has to be singular focused on the one player rather than the whole entire team. And I also feel like if it's a fast-paced action RPG, more so than the MMO side, then yeah, it has to be so small. Stuff like, this character has 10% more 10% more toughness. This one has 10% more healing. Stuff that doesn't affect everyone, where if I choose a healer, I don't get to be as effective because my role is to heal other players, and that's it. Or if I'm a tank, I can't DPS enough because I'm constantly stacking my defense. How am I going to do my thing when I'm playing by myself? All of these type of questions. So I really feel like if they are going to go down a different route to the Holy Trinity, it has to be significantly small where it doesn't affect players to the point where it does become, where you are pigeonholed into a specific role. Or the other option that I really feel like would work is diluting those three systems. So you'd have a tier of healers where you would have the DPS healer, the tank healer, the healer, the super healer if you're fully into that kind of stuff. You guys know what I mean. Or vice versa, where you have a DPS character that's a little bit more tankier at a cost of DPS. I don't think the problem is with the Holy Trinity because it's a good system. It just feels like as a player, that type of stuff closes you off and shuts you down into one role. And I mean, if they can diversify on the actual individual tier, that's going to make things a whole lot better. I can tell you now, I just don't play healers. They're not my thing. I don't like them whatsoever. Even in like Heroes of the Storm, like I sometimes play them for quests and stuff, but they're not really my jam. But on the other hand, when it comes to say like melee characters, melee DPS characters, I love them. I usually go towards, the monk style of combat. They're my thing. And the same goes with ranged characters. I just don't like ranged characters that much. They're okay, they're fun, but I just don't gravitate towards them. I know a lot of people that do gravitate towards those type of classes in the games that I like to play anyway. So yeah, it's pretty interesting stuff, guys, but I haven't heard anything about Lineage Eternal combating the Holy Trinity yet. I know that, yeah, they have discussed it in Lost Ark, and I think this is a good way of approaching it where you don't have to pigeonhole players into just one particular thing, where you're a squishy DPS character, you can't really do raids by yourself, then branch it down, make tiers, make a healer DPS or a tank DPS, or make everyone focused around one kind of thing like in Diablo 3 where it's DPS, 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 and that's all you have to worry about. And a little bit of healing here or a little bit of tankiness there, like the Crusader, he's a bit stronger. The monk, he has got some kind of healing abilities, but you don't really care about him too much, you know what I mean? You've got items that do that for you, like life on hit, life regen, and, increased health globe drops, that kind of stuff. So I think it's an interesting discussion. Anyway, so let's jump on to some of the questions, by the way. Now, I am going to name some usernames this time, so forgive me in advance if I butcher your username, because I know I am going to, but, Moyathan, I think that's how you say it. How you doing, man? He's got a really good question here. So, was wondering about PC versus mobile. Do you think mobile users will be playing together with PC users? Also wondering if they make it so that mobile users and PC users do actually play together. Doesn't that mean that they have to make a PC much less PC-ish? So I'll just cut off the question here and I'll approach the last half in a second. But so what he's essentially saying is a mobile player is going to be playing with PC together, and if that is the case, does that mean that they have to down the PC version of the game in certain areas? like graphics? And I think this is a really cool question because my understanding of it all, and this is just guessing off the top of my head, the mobile version isn't necessarily don't think about it as if you jump on the App Store and you download the game and you can play it. That might be the case, but the way I understand it is you've got it on your PC, you're playing the game, you can potentially either download an app, whether it will be free, probably you'll pay for it, and it streams the game from your PC, similar to like Xbox and PS4, how you can stream games directly from the PC. That's how I understand it because, let's say hypothetically, let's be generous and say the game's only like 10 gig, which is pretty chill for a game, you know what I mean? Let's say it's 10 gig. I can't see people downloading a 10 gig game on their phone. It doesn't seem like a lot of space when you think about how much space your phone does, but it is a lot when you're talking about downloading a game on it. It is a lot. Like, most people's phone plans aren't 10 gig. You know what I mean? Like, you might have a bigger plan than that, but 10 gig's a lot. That's like the whole monthly internet allowance. So I don't think that's going to be the case. If we do see mobile and PC players together, then it'll be through a streaming tech, not necessarily an individual client for the mobile. That's my guess anyway. Alrighty, so let me continue on. He goes on to say, I just can't imagine a phone user playing this game being able to keep up with the standards of a user playing the game for PC. And I totally agree here. Distance, action per second, better, faster movement, just to name a few gameplay advantages. So what's your take on that? So yeah, that was my take on it. I will say one more thing, is that Ragnarok has a brand new app coming out. And it's pretty interesting to see that it's like an isolated game by itself. By the way, that I looked at that app. It is disgustingly cute juvenile. Like, for me anyway. I'm sorry if you like it, guys, if you're interested in the Ragnarok app, but man, it's like, it's so childish. The whole theme around it makes me a little bit uncomfortable, to be honest. But that's cool because that's where the market is for mobile, so I hope it works out for them, but let's go on. And last of all, I will mention, I would never underestimate anything when it comes to technology in South Korea. They're clearly like, the forefront of technology right now. I wouldn't underestimate the South Koreans and what they can do, so I will say that too. Min Gwen, I hope I got that right. Let me know if I didn't, but it's got another awesome question here. Will there be a Mac and PC version of the game? He also says, don't hate on him, because I assume that he likes the Mac. I'm definitely not hating on you. Don't worry about that. He also says, with the exception of you can do workarounds on the Mac where you can get PC games to work with an emulator. I will say this, it's unconfirmed right now for both games, but if you look at the official websites, the official website says it's just for PC, so they don't actually have Mac there. And what I found is with these games, most often they do support Mac. It's not completely unheard of, but yeah, people are stepping away from Macs, and the reason why they are is because they don't have the graphical capability as modern PCs. Like, when you buy a Mac, it's all pre-built, and they tend to have you can't customize them and that kind of stuff, but when you go to a store, it tends to be the same kind of stuff, and graphically, they just aren't really up to speed with what's going on, which is unfortunate. And I believe Overwatch isn't even supporting Mac. Is that right, guys? I think they're not even supporting Mac, and Blizzard are the kings of supporting as many players as they can to reach as many people as they can. But honestly, I'm guessing it's not going to make it. And if it does, that'll be awesome. Let's hope it does anyway. If you're curious about the upload schedules that I do upload these episodes, if you're sitting around and we get to day 5 and day 6, you're like, when the frig's the next episode? Is it ever going to come up? It's weekly at the exact same time. I'll post it in the description below so you can understand it, but it's the exact same time. It's essentially Friday for me at 6 p.m, but I'll put the time down below so you can check it out. So hang in there for next week's episode, and thanks for joining me. I'll speak to you guys soon. Catch ya. Well, by the way, there's an official playlist for the Lost Eternal, so yeah, you can go back and watch all the episodes now in a row, if that's your thing. Catch up.
Scary in it, you pair it better neck up. That's some Aussie slang I learned for shut the heck up. You don't gotta love it, but fuck it, you gon' respect us.